Now, I am talking about a shocking incident that's raised serious questions about infrastructure safety in India. The collapse of a 250 meter stretch of National Highway 66 under construction in Kooriyad, Malappuram, Kerala. This happened on May 19th, 2025, just days before the highway's big inauguration. And it's exposed some major flaws in a high-profile, mega-expensive project. From the collapse itself to the investigations, penalties, and lessons learned, we're diving into every detail: how it happened, who's being held accountable, why Kerala's terrain played a role, and what's being done to prevent this from happening again. This is a story of engineering failures, big money, and the push for safer roads, so let's get into it. Imagine this: a 6-lane elevated section of NH-66 at Kooriyad, near a bridge in Malappuram district, suddenly caved in, with its reinforced earth embankment and retaining wall crashing down onto the service road below. This was part of the Ramanattukara Valanchery section, built over a reclaimed paddy field, and the collapse was catastrophic. 4 vehicles on the service road got trapped in the debris, and 7 people were injured. Thankfully, there were no fatalities. Witnesses described the scene as chaotic, with a small hill of soil and interlocking cement blocks burying the service lane, making both the new highway and the road below completely impossible. Initial investigations pointed to a geotechnical failure. The soft foundation soil beneath the highway couldn't support the heavy load of the tall embankment, especially after water seeped in. Pre-monsoon rains had just hit, and rainwater percolated into the unpaved embankment, weakening it. The retaining wall, made of basic interlocking cement blocks, toppled as the soil gave way. Local residents weren't surprised. They'd been warning about unscientific construction for months, noting waterlogging issues on the service road during rains. They argued that for a highway this high, built on marshy, low-lying terrain, a stronger solution like precast concrete retaining walls or deep pilings should have been used instead of simple block walls. The cracked asphalt, strewn blocks, and massive debris pile were a stark reminder of these construction shortcomings, raising serious concerns about the safety of the entire NH-66 project. Now, let's talk about the money behind this highway, because the numbers are staggering. This 39.7 kilometer stretch from Ramanattukara to the start of the Valanchery bypass was 99% complete when it collapsed, with a total project cost of R2 368 crore. That breaks down to roughly a 60 crore per kilometer for construction alone. But here's where it gets wild. Union Road Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari told Parliament that highway development in Kerala costs about 100 crore per kilometer, one of the highest in India. Why? Kerala's dense population and expensive land make acquisition a costly nightmare. The Kerala state government agreed to cover 25% of land acquisition costs for NH-66 projects, shelling out around R5,580 crore, while the central government, through the National Highways Authority of India, NHAI, funded the rest. This project was a big deal politically. Kerala's government touted it as a flagship infrastructure achievement, taking credit for facilitating land acquisition, and it was set to be a showpiece before the 2026 state elections. So, when this supposedly world-class 100 crore per kilometer highway section collapsed, it was a massive embarrassment. People are now asking tough questions. Where did all that money go? And was it managed properly, given the clear construction failures? The government's response was swift and severe, showing they're not messing around. Within days of the collapse, NHAI suspended the project director overseeing this highway package and terminated a site engineer for negligence. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari didn't hold back, directing the strictest action against all responsible parties, officials, contractors, and consultants. The primary contractor, KNR Constructions Limited, a Hyderabad-based infrastructure firm, got slammed. They're debarred from bidding on NHI projects for 1 year, hit with a Rs 11.8 crore penalty, and ordered to invoke their performance bank guarantee to cover damages. On top of that, KNR must rebuild the collapsed section as a proper flyover, not just another embankment, at their own cost, estimated at Rs 80 crore. This is a huge financial hit, forcing them to fix their failed work properly, but it didn't stop there. The independent engineer, highway engineering consultant, HEC, was blacklisted for a year for failing to ensure quality. Design consultants, Strata Geosystems, and HPS Infra engineers who handled geotechnical design, and safety consultant Sri Infotech also faced debarment for up to a year and fines of Rs 20 lakh each for their shortcomings. Essentially, the entire chain of execution and oversight, from the builder to the supervising engineer, design verifier, and safety auditor, got penalized after initial investigations found clear lapses in quality and safety standards. To dig deeper, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, MORTH, ordered a high-level technical inquiry, bringing in experts from IIT Delhi, IIT Kanpur, IIT Gandhinagar, and a retired IIT professor. They visited the site on May 21st and confirmed the failure came from inadequate foundation support in the soil. On May 24th, NHAI set up another independent expert committee, including a retired CRI scientist, an IIT Palakkad professor, and a Geological Survey of India specialist, to audit all 17 ongoing NH-66 projects in Kerala. They're checking reinforced soil walls and slope protections to identify weak spots before the heavy monsoon rains hit, aiming to prevent similar disasters. Meanwhile, Kerala's Chief Minister and Public Works Department announced their own inquiry, but were quick to point out that NH-66 is NHAI's responsibility, trying to distance the state from blame. Opposition leaders, however, accused the state of hyping the project for votes without monitoring its quality, and the investigations are now zeroing in on accountability at every level: technical, bureaucratic, and corporate. So, who exactly is being held accountable? Let's break it down. KNR Constructions, the main contractor, is in the hot seat. They're blacklisted, their project manager on site is suspended, and they've publicly accepted blame, vowing to reconstruct the section properly at their expense. Gadkari warned that if gross negligence is confirmed, KNR could face permanent blacklisting or more financial penalties. The independent engineer, highway engineering consultant, failed to oversee construction quality and is banned from new projects for a year, with their team lead suspended. The geotechnical design was vetted by Strata Geosystems and HPS Infra engineers, and work zone safety was handled by Sri Infotech, all now debarred and fined for their lapses. Their engineers and team leaders may face further professional consequences. On the government side, NHA's project director for NH-66 works in Kerala is suspended, a rare and serious move, and a site-level engineer was terminated. Gadkari made it clear that any NHA officials found responsible will face action, and while no high-level bureaucrats have been named yet, the message is that even government engineers aren't off the hook if they overlooked quality norms. What's alarming is how this points to a possible nexus or systemic lapse. You've got contractors, consultants, and officials supposed to check each other, a multi-layered oversight system, but none caught the issues locals had flagged, like waterlogging and cracks. Opposition leader V.D. Satheesan called out the state government for taking credit for the highway, but failing to coordinate with NHAI, implying local authorities didn't push for fixes and left everything to NHAI and its consultants. This lack of oversight may have enabled corner cutting. Investigative reports revealed more red flags. In some stretches, hills were raised unscientifically without proper slope stabilization, causing landslides during rains. The collapsed retaining wall was a basic block structure, fine for small heights, but not for a tall embankment on soft soil. Experts say a viaduct would have been smarter. Similar issues, cracks, sinkages, and landslips, popped up in other Kerala districts like Kasaragod, Kannur, and Kozhikode during the same pre-monsoon period, suggesting systemic problems across NH-66, possibly from rushing to meet deadlines. While there's no public evidence of outright corruption yet, the government's broad penalties, hitting everyone from private firms to its own engineers, suggest they see this as a collective failure, hinting at negligence or even collusive complacency. Kerala's unique geography, intense monsoon rains, waterlogged lowlands, and unstable hill slopes demands engineering that's a cut above. And this collapse shows what happens when you don't adapt to those conditions. The Kooriyad embankment was essentially an artificial fill over soft, paddy soil, a disaster waiting to happen without proper ground strengthening. One expert from the investigation team noted that there were no glaring irregularities in the block wall's construction. The contractor built it as designed, but the design itself didn't account for the soil's weakness. This wasn't just poor workmanship, it was an engineering misjudgment. When torrential rain hit, the embankment couldn't handle the weight and hydraulic pressure, collapsing spectacularly. The fact that multiple NH-66 sections in Kerala are cracking suggests that national highway standards weren't fine-tuned for Kerala's soil, topology, and climate stresses. Officials admit that past delays and political battles over highway widening, including protests over land and environmental concerns, led to rushed construction to make up for lost time. Critics say this created a perfect storm for compromises, contractors under pressure, consultants possibly rubber stamping variations, and bureaucrats eager to call projects almost done for political wins. This nexus might not be a blatant conspiracy, but a convergence of interests, finishing fast and staying within budget, that blinded everyone to warning signs. Locals knew the area was prone to waterlogging, yet drainage and reinforcement were insufficient, and geotechnical experts likely weren't consulted thoroughly enough during design for vulnerable sites. The result was a highway built to generic specs, but not to Kerala's demanding reality. So, what's being done to fix this mess and prevent future collapses? First off, the collapsed section won't just be patched up. It's being rebuilt as a proper flyover, an elevated bridge, which is a clear admission that a bridge is better suited for flood-prone, weak soil areas. NHAI's expert committee is conducting a system-wide safety audit of all ongoing NH-66 works in Kerala, focusing on reinforced soil walls, slopes, and drainage structures. Any design like Kooriyad's will be reconsidered, and they're looking at strengthening retaining wall anchoring, improving subsoil drainage, or replacing earth embankments with pile-supported structures where needed. The IIT-led technical review, convened by Gadkari, is diving deep into the collapse's root causes, and their findings could lead to updated standards, like tougher specs for reinforced earth walls in Kerala's saturated soils. The blacklisting of KNR Constructions and consultants is a loud warning to the infrastructure industry. Follow specs or face serious consequences. Morth is also signaling they'll invoke contractors' bank guarantees and penalize lapses more readily, pushing firms to prioritize safety over cost-cutting. Local MPs and experts are calling for construction practices tailored to Kerala's environment, like extensive pre-construction soil analysis, using ground improvement techniques such as stone columns or geotextiles, and ensuring proper drainage so water doesn't pool under pavements. Malappuram MP E.T. Mohammed Bashir emphasized to Gadkari that construction must consider Kerala's unique geography and climate, which could mean stricter rules for monsoon season work, weather-resistant materials, and designing for worst-case rainfall. Kozhikode MP M.K. Raghavan wrote to Gadkari, urging immediate steps to stabilize sites where hills were cut unscientifically for NH-66 to prevent pre-monsoon landslides, suggesting temporary measures like retaining nets, soil nailing, or berms at incomplete slopes. There's also a push for transparency. Locals' repeated warnings about waterlogging and cracks were ignored. So one recommendation is to formally integrate community feedback into project monitoring. Agencies might set up better channels for residents and local officials to report signs of failure, triggering quick inspections. Going forward, national agencies like the Central Road Research Institute, CRRI, and Indian Roads Congress, IRC, are likely to study this incident and issue updated guidelines for highway construction in coastal alluvial soils and high rainfall zones. Ensuring rigorous geotechnical reviews, robust retaining designs, proper drainage, and independent quality audits at every stage is critical. The NH-66 collapse has forced both the central and state governments to take a hard look at how mega projects are executed. And if these recommended reforms, technical fixes, stricter accountability, and listening to local concerns are implemented, Kerala's highways could finally live up to those international standards without more disasters.